Hello and welcome to the Glamptuary podcast, where we talk about the experiential outdoor hospitality industry. I'm your host, Bobby Marsden. We're stepping things up on this episode and adding an extra guest. We're talking to the mother-daughter team from Cedar Ridge Ranch, and their names are Pam and Merrill Johnson. I had the pleasure of staying at Cedar Ridge Ranch back in the fall of 2022 with my brothers, and we had a spectacular time. In this episode, we'll talk with Pam and Merrill about the experiences they provide on their ranch, and we'll talk about the move they made across the country from Chicago back in the late 90s to open up their Glamptuary property. All that and more, so without further ado, let's dive in. Hey Pam, hey Merrill, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Hi Bobby, thanks so much for the invite.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Thanks for taking time away from the ranch. I know you got a lot going on there, right?
Yes, kids and all.
Well, Pam and Merrill, and for our viewers, I had the pleasure of staying at Cedar Ridge Ranch on a trip with my brothers. We take a trip once a year, and we chose Cedar Ridge to be our trip of the year. And it was special for me because it was an introduction to glamping for both of my brothers who had never done it before. And also my brothers were unfamiliar with horses, and so I got to get them on the back of a couple, and we went on a beautiful ride. So for me, it was a wonderful trip just to see my brothers see a side of me and a side of things that I do that they weren't really privy to, and they had a wonderful time. So thank you both for being such gracious hosts.
It was our pleasure. It was such a fun time with all of you.
Yeah. Well, there's always an origin story to how something starts. And in other conversations with other glamp sites and glamp site owners, you know, there's some commonalities and there's also some very unique aspects to how they were able to start their property. And I'm sure, Pam and Merrill, you have some unique stories on your own. But one commonality I think that I've seen across many origin stories is that people chose to leave a career and a lifestyle that they had been living for quite some time to take an adventure and a big leap into a brand new life of operating a ranch or a farm or a glamp site or anything that's kind of based around experiential outdoor hospitality. So Pam and Merrill, I'd love to know, like, what was the inspiration for you to leave Chicago, which is where I believe you were based, and leave corporate America behind and venture off into the mountains?
Well, Merrill and I were invited out for a week to visit some friends in Snowmass. And basically we woke up in the morning and went river rafting, and then we went mountain climbing and played with horses and all the things that you get to do out in Colorado. And that was kind of the wake-up call. And we had some traumatic things happen to our family, and that just kind of, you know, said to us, life is short, and, let's experience it. That's how quickly we came out to Colorado.
And now this was roughly, I believe, about 23 or 24 years ago, correct?
Yes.
And Merrill, how old were you roughly? You don't have to divulge your actual age, but I would imagine you were pretty young at that point.
I was about 8 years old, and
wow.
I remember that back in Lake Forest, my parents had put up a ceremonial-sized teepee in the back of our yard, and we lived in the suburban area of Lake Forest, and there was a teepee in our backyard. So I don't know if much people know about where that is, but let's just say that's unique. And I was that girl who was just always outside running around with my dogs, and I just loved being outside. So when I had the opportunity to go to Colorado with my parents, and when the opportunity arose to just move, I jumped on it. And my entire childhood has been outside amongst the animals. I have so many brothers and sisters, but not of the humankind.
I think some people out there, maybe even most, would say that's a good thing.
Yes.
That's such a different upbringing that a lot of children experience. You know, most kids are in suburbs, they're in cities. It's such a blessing to have the opportunity to get the education about land and about nature and about being outdoors and about animals and about so many things that you don't have access to necessarily as a child growing up in a city. When you got out to the ranch for the first time, I would imagine, was that one of the first times that you were introduced to horses and getting familiar with them?
That's a really interesting question. I'm so grateful. I'm blessed for my parents to be my parents, but for many reasons. But one of them is back in Chicago. My mom actually had the how would you call it, longing and calling to actually ride and be around horses, and so luckily enough. And she'll share with you some too. When she was a young girl, she would just do anything that she could just to be at the horse barn. Some people call them horse brats, like they're just with muck stalls just to be able to afford a lesson. And I was so grateful that she persevered even in Chicago to find a natural horsemanship instructor. And Mom, we would drive hours to go and see them. And I remember the arena was full of, bouncy balls and tarps and all sorts of obstacles. And I have such fond memories. So I am very grateful that we actually began kind of like our horse affliction or affection, I don't know, or whatever you call that, for back in Chicago. And funny enough, I remember in my bedroom there, I had this poster, which had the American Quarter Horse World Championship show poster. And I had this poster in my room, and I had no idea what that was until I moved out here and got a trainer. And then I realized, now looking back, that poster was like my symbol for wanting to go to the World Championship show and qualify and compete there. But before I, never knew when I was a little girl, like what that poster meant, but now I do. So it's amazing what, is in your environment and what in your life, what pulls you, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. So I'm really grateful that we actually did have that. And my mom got into horses when we moved out here more. And then believe it or not, the first horse we bought as a family, my mom bought, it was a cutting horse up in Aspen. And his name is Nick, and he still is at the ranch today, kicking hard. And I will not tell you his age. That just won't happen. But he still teaches and trains all my little girls and kids. And man, he's a special horse. So.
Well, that's an awesome story. And Pam, that does make a lot of sense then, that you had a history with horses, and I would imagine that maybe steered you in a way to maybe what you were looking for initially in Colorado.
As Merrill said, when I grew up in Lake Forest was a very wealthy community, and there was a riding stable down the road, but it was English, and it was very, very, kind of hoity-toity and very expensive. And I would go down all the time and just kind of hang out, as Merrill said. But when we got back into horses, I wanted to make sure that we really pursued the Western influence instead of the English, because we were in Colorado, and I really liked the trail riding and the natural aspect of horsemanship. But that's how it started. And then for us to try to get Western riding lessons, Merrill, remember back outside of Lake Forest, we had to drive forever because they didn't have Western riding lessons. You could only learn English, and that's not what we wanted.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know exactly what you want. And I'm curious, when you were doing your land search in Colorado and trying to find a place, you mentioned that you saw Cedar Ridge and just fell in love with it immediately, or was there a process that you followed to try and find the best piece of land to launch your new life?
We moved to Colorado quite quickly, and we moved into a house that wasn't really our dream house, but it got us to Colorado. And then when we were out there, we would have the horse trainer come out and play around with horses, and I would just sit and chat with her and kind of talk about what we wanted. I would just kind of sit like today and talk about a place where people can come and learn about horses and natural horsemanship and all of that. Well, she said, Pam, you're not going to believe this, but I know exactly the place that you're talking about. And by the way, it's for sale. And Merrill and I drove up within an hour and drove up. And I'll never forget, we came up to the barn, and I was so excited I couldn't even stand it. And the realtor that we came up with said, oh my gosh, the owner's there. This is her car. It was a bolo. So we were able to just talk to her, and it was a flash. It was that incredibly miraculous.
Yeah, there's a song, it's been playing lately, but it's the idea is like, God is in your story. Like if you look back at how many like times where like it just kind of, there is no, chance. I mean, it's just an unbelievable, a clash of energies. It was truly God sent that we came down that road that day, and it was our dream come true. And it's always is, and it still brings tears to my eyes thinking about it. Sorry, but we're really, really fortunate and blessed to have it.
Well, I'm really happy that the land spoke to you. It's kind of feels like the stars just happened to align based on what you were projecting out there. And so it's great to see that these opportunities come back when people put themselves out there, make themselves vulnerable, and are really have a goal in mind. And speaking of goals, it sounds like it started kind of with horses, but it has grown since. Did you have a vision for Cedar Ridge Ranch as it is now, back when you were starting, or has it kind of been a building process as you've moved along, starting with horses and then you maybe started with something else? You added some glamping tents. Like, how did that process work?
That's a great story in and of itself. So the ranch, like when my mom said when we found it, it was a boarding facility. And so my mom, dropped everything from Chicago and moved here, and she became the manager and running it feet on the ground of this horse boarding facility, and has done for incredible, all the way till now, 25 plus years. Has done an incredible job of it, changing, transferring from, Family Circle magazine to ordering hay and shavings. So it's a totally different lifestyle, but she's loved it and we've loved it. I think the when it started kind of becoming more what it is today was influenced from my period of time at Colorado Mountain College in the sustainability degree. And it was at that point in that sustainability degree, we first, as a family, got into this idea of composting. And it literally, everything began with composting. It's this concept of generalization that there is no such thing as waste in this world, and that everything is just an energy input into another system. And so if you kind of have that overall thought, you can apply it to so many different areas. And so as a family, we started composting. And then I started realizing, it was actually in my geology class. I woke up and had an epiphany. I was like, wait, our soils, in Colorado are dry and there's not a lot of humus in them. And I had this epiphany one day in geology that, really for our soils to grow food and for the best, of all plants and human life, we need some compost. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, we have such an opportunity to create what is supposed to be a waste product into something that can promote so much growth and health. And so it was at that point we had a huge manure pile on the ranch, right, Mom? And
yes.
And the light bulb went on, and I just stayed up all night long thinking about what an opportunity this is and how to get moving with it. And we just started selling all of our horse manure and composting it for local gardeners and farmers and ranchers, and then using it on our own property. And so then it led to, I was like, well, how can I apply this idea of no waste to other parts of other things? And we got into large black heritage breed pigs, and we raised some pigs. And through that adventure, we connected with a couple grocery stores that we had contracts with to pick up all the food that was perishables that was not good enough for human consumption. And we picked that all up for our livestock, for our pigs. And pigs are amazing composters. They're great digesters. They really turn waste into incredible meat. And so that then started our ag aspect of the ranch. So, at that point, then we had our chickens and our pigs, and then we were starting to sell our meat back. And then it just really hit me. I said, man, Mom, Dad, we have something so incredible, and it's changed our life so much that I think we can truly share this with other people and make domino changes in their life as well. And so that's where the whole concept of glamping came. And so then people can come and stay on the farm, see the amazing natural beauty of the stars in the sky, wake up to the rooster, cock-a-doodle-dooing, picking up eggs, realizing that there's all different color eggs. So there was a domino effect, just having people come and stay on the property. And it's a beautiful property to do so. There's a lot of farmers and ranchers that don't have the time to do that. And so we thought this is a great way for people to come and see a little bit of farm and ranching life and sustainable ways that they can actually, maybe put in their own, use to their own lives or in their own households or communities. And so it's a really, whereas some farmers and ranchers don't have the time to do so. They're busy. They are busy making food for all of us. And that in of itself is a massive task and undertaking. So I think we are in a position in a wonderful way to be a connector to people who are maybe in the city or in suburbia, to farmers and ranchers, and be that peace and understanding. Because I feel like there's just so much lost, nowadays, where the convenience of grocery stores, where you don't even know where that meat's coming from. So it's a great way to be able to see the animals, see how they live, what the work ethic it takes to make that product and that meat for consumption, and then be able to really support our farmers and ranchers. It was awesome last year, and our years prior. We'll have people come and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I love these beer brats. Where can we get more?" And I said, "Well, I'm not doing the pigs anymore. However, we have we have a connection of awesome heritage breeders all around the United States that we could connect you with." And so then they went back to Florida and connected with their local community and their local ranching community. So I think we're just a wonderful connector, so to speak.
Yeah, it's great to be that connective tissue too, and not only for your neighbors and for people that are coming in to visit, connect with your animals. And Pam, when I was there, you introduced me to some very friendly goats and some other animals that were also on the ranch. What are all the animals that you're currently offering? And I think a little birdie told me that you may have some baby goats now on the ranch.
Well, let me explain. All of the animals that we have on the ranch are called a heritage breed. And I had no idea what that meant until, I started learning all of this. And the heritage breed means these are animals that have been around for a long time, and they're also very slow growing. So they don't fit into the food system in the United States. And that's why we like them, because they're becoming extinct. And so in each category, we have a heritage breed in that category. So we have a zebu. Have you heard of a zebu before?
I have. I believe they're miniature cows.
It's the oldest breed of miniature cow in the world, and they came from India way back when. And if you go down to South America and you ever go to those restaurants where they have all the meat hanging and they slice it off, that's a zebu. And they're much better for the environment than cows. They're smaller, and their feet are also shaped in such a way that they don't trample down the soil. So we love our zebus, and we've had babies, and we have zebu burgers and all kinds of zebu meat. Then we had pigs, and we did find out that they do eat a lot. And after we would go to Whole Foods, into the back of Whole Foods, and bring out trash cans of groceries that had a day after they were, being taken off the shelves. It just is a lot of work. It's a very good experience, but it's a lot of work. And so now we have our chickens, and we have all kinds of eggs that are white. And my favorite question when I do the farm tours are the little ones that say, "But aren't all eggs white?" I said, No, they're not. And then we give them a chance to go and find eggs in their nest, and so they get to hunt around where the chickens are and find the baby eggs. So that is really, really neat. And we have miniature horses, and then Merrill has all of her horses that when she gives lessons, like she did to you, Bobby, and you did a trail ride. And people come from everywhere, I have to say, Merrill, to take a lesson with Merrill, because it's not your so-called regular horseback riding lesson. I'm sure you realize that. It's a whole story about horses, and you get to groom horses, and it's pretty special. So Merrill is definitely the horseback riding person. And then we have dogs. We just had a whole group of baby dogs, and we have them wandering around. And then we have our goats. And how many do we have now, Merrill? The babies.
Oh, so baby goats are called kids, and that's what I started out podcast, is that there are a lot of kids. So kids, we have actually 6 on the ground right now, and a few more in waiting. So they are just the cutest things. They just come out perfectly, and they're up on all fours and running around. And I mean, I was out feeding this morning with the alpacas and goats, and we have 2 Great Pyrenees who protect them and take care of them. And even though it's cold and snowy, they're all just out jumping around, and they're just so sweet. So yeah, we're excited because we'll be starting to do some milking workshops again, and do some cheese making workshops. And this summer is going to be full, and it's very, very exciting. So stay tuned.
And I also, Merrill, thank you. I forgot to mention alpacas, because we got alpacas there. Everybody thinks that they don't know alpacas very well, and alpacas are a fabulous animal to have. And we have felting classes. So once a year, when we shear their fur, we get to have felting classes, and we come and make all sorts of ornaments. And what else do we make, Merrill? But we have
we've done so many things, like coasters to hats. We don't make the hats on site, but we do really support our local fiber artists. And there's one in Palisade who will give the majority of our fiber to, and then they will make custom hats for us to share with and to sell with our people who glamp on the ranch. So socks to hats to scarves. It's wonderful. And Mom, you know all of, like, how much better it is than sheep, but they're really fun. They're fun animals to work with.
Well, it's interesting because in America we grew up with wool, and alpaca is 10 times warmer than wool, and it's now I can't remember exactly, but it doesn't have any of the
no lanolin. Yeah, no lanolin. So
no
it's
lanolin.
Yep, hypoallergenic. A lot of people, I didn't realize how many people are allergic to lanolin and wool. But anyway, yeah, there's just so many benefits. The list goes on.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot going on. You have the ranch operations, which could consume someone just with that, and then you have the classes, and you have glamping. How do you work division of labor? Have you guys had these conversations about, okay, we want to do 47 things, so you take care of that half, I'll take care of this half, or like how do you manage it all?
Yeah, naturally, we've kind of found our own little ethos areas. I'm definitely more like the horse person, so I'll manage all the horseback riding, the boarding facility, the needs and cares of all the horses. And then my mom, she is the head of house, and she's the most amazing hostess with the mostest. And all the reviews that you see online and on our websites are like, oh, Pam Johnson was just so wonderful and shared with us so many wonderful things. And she's incredible. She has such a light of hospitality, and Dad goes in there too. And he helps us day in and day out. I know he's not on this right now, but he is doing chores morning and evening, and he helps out with all the guests with any of their needs. And then in addition, like the workshops, like Mom does all her fiber, and she does the alpaca. If you sign up for a farm tour, it's mostly likely her. If you do get her, you are a very lucky person. And, luckily it's just kind of evolved that way. And then some people that have come into kind of help with us with the ranch, they just kind of, are attracted to the places that they do best. So what's the saying? Like, surround yourself with incredible people, and, the dream works. Makes a team, or teamwork makes the dream work, I guess. I don't know.
Now,
all of the above. They all work.
To add on what you're saying, it comes naturally because we're so blessed to have people from all over the world. Before COVID, we had a couple from Saudi Arabia, and all of these people bring different viewpoints and different livelihoods. So it's as interesting for me as it is to share what we've done. So it's really, it's a mutual beneficial society. We really, really enjoy what we do, and I wish everybody had work like we do that, could put so much, joy into it.
Yeah, I think it's becoming a trend. It's a dream. People want to get away from the city. They want to experience nature more. And sometimes all it takes is the gateway to be able to visit a property like yours and see what life can be like in a different setting. And that could be the impetus or motivation for someone to make that leap, to try something like you're trying. Speaking to that point, as you've grown your business, and glamping and agritourism, it's still kind of fairly new in the United States. I think it's been happening for quite longer in the United Kingdom and outside of the United States. Have you found it fairly easy to grow your business and maneuver through all of the things that you need to make the business function? Is there any advice that you have for people out there that want to maybe get into some kind of a business like this, or maybe have a basic operation and are thinking about expanding? Is there anything, words of wisdom you could pass their way?
I have some, but Mom, do you want to start?
Well, when I think about it, mine is getting on your iPhone or iPad or whatever you have and just research, and research some more. And I find it fun. I just saw what you had written, Bobby, about the history of yurts. And that is so interesting. But each little aspect of this business has its own research. Starting out with horse bedding. What kind of horse bedding do you use? Use pellets? Do you use flakes? Do you use this? And they each have their own priorities. So everyone really needs to be researched. And then you start to kind of put them all together. So just yesterday, I was looking at posts on Airbnb, and somebody had put together a whole Google sheet on everything you need to start. And I looked at it and I went, wow, somebody is really streamlining this. That's fabulous. And it just comes with, the heart and the experience and the time.
I think also too, Bobby, that it's really important to let the land lead the way. If that makes sense. An operation like ours is going to be very different than an operation in Arizona, just based on climate and environment, and the means and the resources. So I think what's really, really cool about the glamping industry is that every property is going to be so unique. There is no way to make them all the same. I just don't think that's really possible, and or is what you really want to go for, because the differentiation is what's drawing your client to where you are. I just saw online today, I was looking for or we're going to take the kids on a vacation, I guess a vacation away from a vacation, right? On break. And I was seeing these really cool Airstreams in the desert, and they had a whole different vibe and different kind of feel. And so I think it's just really let the land lead, because if you start to force the land to do what is on your Instagram page or what's on your favorite Pinterest board, it might not work that way. Not to say that those can't be inspirations, just definitely keep in mind the land. Like how we situated all of our units was very, very we took a lot of time to do so, because we wanted to keep the privacy and uniqueness and the view of Sopris. We didn't want it to be just one unit on top of the other unit, and then it almost just becomes a hotel, but in a canvas. So we really were wanting it to be a unique stay, and each stay on the ranch is its own unique stay within the ranch. So we've had people come and stay in the yurt, and then they book the safari tent, and then the next year they do the farmhouse, and then the next year they do the cowgirl cabin. So every unit on the ranch is also in and of its own very, very unique. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and I think you've done a great job of offering up the variety for people to be able to come back and experience it in a different way. That's so important for a couple different reasons. One, I think you want repeat business. You are running a business, so you want people to come back and visit, and giving them that reason is very important. But two, I think it's nice because glamping is so new to be able to offer options to people, because they may want the security of a farmhouse over a safari tent, or they may want the ruggedness of a safari tent over a farmhouse. And it's nice if you can offer that variety and be helping to further educate people as to what glamping is, because it is new, and it's only been a word since 2005 in the dictionary, according to the dictionary.
Wow.
Bobby, you're so right. And two things that made me think about it. What you're doing with Glamptuary, and you pointed it out to me a few weeks ago, is that a Glamptuary is a place to go glamping and also have activities and things to do. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the glamping sites, basically someone just picks up keys, they check in, and it's sightless. They don't see anybody, and that's fine. But we love to be a Glamptuary and actually be the host and hostess and greet everybody. People always say, they couldn't believe it because we answer the phone. And to me, the most important thing is to answer the phone. Hello, this is Cedar Ridge Ranch. May I help you? And they're not used to it because we don't get to do it anymore. So, that handshake and showing that you actually care about that person and you want them to have a nice day has kind of fallen by the wayside. And that's what we're really hoping to achieve.
Well, thank you for the kind words on Glamptuary. I'm hoping it does something to help bring more of these offerings to light. And I agree with you. And I also think that sometimes it's nice to go on top of a mountain and stay in a yurt and not see, another human being and have nothing to do and get into your Zen space. And I think it's also nice to have the option to stay in a yurt, but also experience a new way of life, learn some things, have what I like to call an active vacation for the mind. Meaning it's not necessarily the time to check out, but it's the time to engage your brain and rewire some synapses and come out a more well-rounded person. So when you get back into your day-to-day life, you can maybe approach it from a different perspective. And speaking of different perspectives, it sounds like some of the inspiration that you draw could be from things you see online. Is there inspiration that you draw when you do take your vacations? Because I know I've found, now that I've started Glamptuary, when I stay at places, I always have a different lens as to how I'm looking at things versus just kind of showing up. But is there anywhere that you've drawn inspiration from recently that maybe would influence some things you might do down the road?
For us, so Jean Bravo, my fiance, I'm excited to marry him. He and I did a spring vacation trip. Was it 2 years ago in Arizona, in Wickenburg area, which is a huge hot spot for roping and the Western way of life during the winter time. And there are some really cool guest ranches there. And we stayed at a guest ranch there. Shoot, I will have to get back to the name. But man, it was just so lovely, and it was cool. They had like a common area for everyone to come and do breakfast and the brunch, and that's something that, splitting bread with other people is just, there's something about that. And I remember when you came with your brothers and we had a big dinner and just doing more things like that. I believe it's on the horizon. We're going to do a wood-fired pizza oven outside from the ranch. So that would be fun, just so we can, make bread together and break bread together. So things like that, just, added experiences, just also taking in a note, sometimes seeing things that I also don't want to be is really helpful. We went to a bigger location, and it just became too much of just a in and out kind of not what I wanted. So I mean, just like you, I mean, you're one of our dear friends now, and also, you know, I feel like we make friends and family members through this business, and so that's something that I definitely want to make sure is always at the heart of what we do.
Yeah, that's so cool that you look at it that way, where you're not just seeing it as, you know, like 100% for profit. I don't care, get in and get out kind of thing, but really putting your heart and soul into it is so important, and it does register with your guests, and it is something that they take away from with them. And the reality is that creates word of mouth, because they're going to then tell their friends and family about it. And I think word of mouth is obviously very powerful when we're talking about experiences such as this, which are kind of hard to capture on a website or a news article or something like that. So when you're not, if possible, when you're not taking a vacation to a similar property that might create some inspiration, do you ever get a chance to take the business cap off and just completely try something new? Has that happened in the past recently, or do you have any plans to visit anywhere that you're excited about?
So my mom was just in Belize. Mom, do you want to share about that experience?
This was definitely an interesting experience. I went down to Belize, which I've always wanted to go to. In fact, when Merrill grew up and I was working, her nanny was from Belize, and so Alva actually lives there, and I was able to look her up, and I was very, very excited to go. And the first resort that I ended up with was not, it didn't work for me, and it was basically just kind of a lay in the sun, and there wasn't too much excitement about having the guests or anything like that. So I literally the next day spoke to somebody about a different resort and found it out and made a reservation, and I'm so glad I did. We were able to, they really cared about the guests. They knew where I was all the time without being overly cautious. But I took cacao making classes, and I took classes on how to make tortillas. I took classes on their earthenware that they make down there. And I really spent the week learning about Belize. You know, what is Belize? Where is Belize? What's the culture in Belize? And the difference in 2 weeks between the first week and the second week was just such an eye-opener for me and what we want to have happen up at our ranch.
Well, it sounds like it's really just kind of in your blood. It's who you are, and I think it's wonderful that you want to take the experiences that you accumulate and share them with people. And I think that culture education is so important because it creates empathy. Empathy creates understanding, and understanding creates that collective mindset where we can work together versus work against each other. So I think it's great. Well, I like to conclude, speaking of learning about people, with a questionnaire. It was developed by a person named Bernard Pouhot. He's from France. And it's a list of 10 questions. They're general, and it's kind of meant to inspire you to provide an answer kind of off the top of your head, but then feel free to elaborate on that answer. And usually these questions are meant for a single person, but because I have the luxury of having two of you, what I'm going to do is alternate questions. And since you're mother and daughter, I imagine there's going to be a lot of synergy there. So, Pam, I'm going to start with you. Pam, what is your favorite word?
Happy.
I like that word. Merrill, what is your least favorite word?
Oh my goodness. I was going to say fake.
You should say it.
Yeah.
Fake.
Like, you mean like the connotation of the word, or like the word itself?
I think the word itself. Yeah, this a word that either has a meaning for you, or if it's a word you hear. Everybody has a different trigger as to why it might be their least favorite word. But you said fake. Why is that your least favorite word?
Because life's too short to be anything but like anything like fake. That's why. I think it should be real, and I think fake is just dropped out. So.
Yeah, I agree. Pam, what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I guess I crazy having positive feedback from folks or just people, chatting with people, whether I'd be at the clay studio and we'd go down and we'd all be making pots together and we would just chat about a million different things. Or when I do a felting class, it's always, I can think, that same kind of an environment where you have people from all different kinds and places and just to sit and very casually just chat about things. And then it gives you that forum to do that.
Yeah, it's the platform to connect, which is what you offer. So I think that that's awesome. Merrill, what turns you off? I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah, hypocrisy. Hypocrites, I guess. Yeah, hypocrisy. Sure.
Yeah, which would make sense because you want people to be truthful.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Pam, what is your favorite curse word?
Well, you know what's funny?
If you don't want to answer, I can.
You know what's funny is when you like the ones that are easy to say. So they start, they roll into it and then they end with a very strong letter, whether it be a T or a K. And sometimes they start with an S or a C or an F. Maybe. They're just fun to say.
Merrill, I know that I said I would alternate questions, but I know you have something at the tip of your tongue. So what is your favorite curse word?
Well, it's not duck, let's just say.
Good.
You know why? Because, man, it describes so many things. That's why you can use it for so many things.
Merrill, what sound or noise do you love?
Oh, I know. Okay. My horse neighing when I come to the barn. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pam, what sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, I know. Hard, ugly rap. Kind of that nasty, tinny rap sound. I don't know.
I feel like I want to follow up with then.
Yeah, no, but you don't know where to go.
No, I know exactly where I want to go. What's your favorite music? What type of music do you like to listen to?
Oh, for Merrill?
Both of you.
So one of my favorites is Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra. That's my jam. I also love some Christian music too, and some country. Always country. So. Old stuff.
And Pam, obviously, we know you don't like rap, so we know that. What if you're going to be listening to the radio? What kind of music would we be hearing?
Okay, if it wasn't the radio, I used to listen to Yanni. I know it's something because nobody ever knows about him, but Merrill remembers on the porch in the summer, I would have him full speed out in the backyard, sitting on the porch, and with every single album that he made.
I think he sold quite a few records, so I think there's others that would agree with you.
He did.
Merrill, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, I'm really excited. It's not totally far out there. Does it have to be like completely opposite to what I'm already currently? Okay.
just something that you're not currently doing that you'd like to attempt, and it could be something that you're getting ready to attempt.
Okay, so I'm getting ready to attempt to be working in the film industry and making movies with the love of my life.
That is a shift from ranch life. You don't have to give away the story, obviously, but is it about ranching, or is it even the storyline something different?
The storyline is completely different. It's really more so about my fiance and his upbringing in Africa, and it's around and involved around rugby.
Well, that's cool. And actually, another similarity I would say is that because you do lead a life of educating people and showing them new ways of learning, I think storytelling and filmmaking isn't really that far removed from what you do.
Thanks.
But that sounds great. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Pam, what profession would you never like to do?
I remember one summer I worked for my dad, and I was kind of behind the desk secretary kind of a thing. And I told myself that I would never be a secretary. I would have secretaries. And I did end up doing just that.
Boss lady. I like it. Okay, I'm going to ask you both this question, and Merrill, I'm going to start with you. So Pam, you're going to have a little bit of a head start on this one. But Merrill, and Pam, both of you, but Merrill, we'll start with you. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Wow. Good job down there. I'm so excited you're here.
It's very sweet. Pam, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
And I do think heaven exists. And when I come through, I want him to clap and go, wow, let's get started.
I like that. Well, Pam and Merrill, I really thank you both for taking the time to talk with me and come on the Glamptuary podcast, like I said. And you're doing great stuff down there. My brothers and I had a wonderful time. We're looking forward to visiting again. We will choose a different glamping structure this time. So safari tent, check. Yeah. We'll see what the next one is. But until we do, I wish you both the best and safe travels. And Merrill, best of luck in that new venture. And I'll be the first in line with a ticket to see it.
Excellent.
It was so nice to get to know you and get to know your brothers and experience having you have dinner at the barn. And we consider you part of the family also. And thank you so much for, letting us share our story today.
You bet. More stories to come.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and the conversation I had with Pam and Merrill. They run a wonderful operation at Cedar Ridge Ranch, and if you'd like to learn more about what they do and potentially book a stay with them, you can do so right on their website, which is www.cedarridgeranch.com. That is www.cedarridgeranch.com. And if you'd like to follow us and subscribe, you can do so on our website, which is www.glamptuary.com. That is www.glamptuary.com. Until next time, be well and safe travels.